One day, the last star will die, and the universe will fall into eternal darkness. It is likely that the tiny red dwarf star, the most likely place to find extraterrestrial life, will be the last home for humanity before the universe becomes uninhabited.
Affairs in outer space.
So what do we know about red dwarfs and why are they our last hope? At least 70% of all stars in the universe are red dwarfs, the smallest stars in the universe. Their masses range from 7 to 50% of the mass of the Sun. They're not much bigger than Jupiter, but they're still large enough. They're also very faint and impossible to see with the naked eye. You've never seen red dwarfs in the night sky. Even using the latest technological capabilities, we can only clearly observe the red dwarfs closest to us. About 20 out of the 30 stars near the Earth are red dwarfs. Like all other stars, they are made of hydrogen and helium, but while massive stars have helium in their cores, red dwarfs have helium and hydrogen constantly mixing, so they fuse their fuel very slowly. Red dwarfs burn so slowly before becoming extinguished that their average lifespan is from 1 to 10 trillion years. By comparison, the Sun will shine for another 5 billion years, since the universe is only 12,750,000,000 years old. No red dwarf has reached the later stages of development yet. Any of the trillions of red dwarfs are still babies. Speaking of babies, the smallest star in the entire universe is also a red dwarf. Red dwarfs can hardly be considered stars at all, because if they had a little less hydrogen, they'd be brown dwarfs, the failed stars that can't sustain a fusion reaction for a long time. So what about aliens, or a new home for humanity? Since the Sun will die someday, we will need a new home sooner or later, and where there are habitable planets, there may be aliens. The Kepler Space Telescope has found that at least half of red dwarfs have planets with masses between 1/2 and 4 Earth masses. Many of them are in the habitable zone of the region, near stars where water can be liquid. But since red dwarfs burn at relatively low temperatures, a planet has to be very close to it, about the same distance as Mercury from the Sun, and possibly even closer. But this causes additional problems. For example, a planet close to a star can be tidally locked, meaning it will always be faced by the same side. That side will be incredibly hot, and as for the shadow side, it will be bitterly cold. It's this perspective that makes the planet very difficult for the development of at least some kind of life. But if you consider a planet with a big ocean, it will help to distribute the temperature and energy of the star, so there could be some stability. All the gravitational force of a red dwarf can compress a planet and heat it up to such a level that all the water from the planet would evaporate rather quickly. Consequently, the planet in question could also, like Venus, plunge into a hot inferno. There is another problem, which is that all red dwarfs give off their energy in different ways. Star spots can form on their surface that will absorb 40% of a planet's light radiation per month. Hence, the oceans will freeze on some planets. Also, red dwarfs with star spots can emit powerful solar flares that can double the brightness of these tiny stars for a few minutes. And this is enough to destroy large portions of the planet's atmosphere and gradually burn it. But some dwarfs may even be useful because of the length of their existence. Some red dwarfs with moderate levels of activity may be a unique and ideal place for life to continue in the universe. On Earth, life has existed for about 4 billion years, and we essentially have another billion years to spare until the sun heats up to the point where it is simply unbearable to live on Earth. All the inhabitants of planet Earth will either die or successfully leave the planet in search of a new home. In trillions of years, we could have built a civilization around a red dwarf with the most correct conditions possible. About 5% of all red dwarfs in the Milky Way could be adapted for life and are about the size of Earth. In total, the number of such dwarfs reaches about 4 billion. But life may not need a planet like Earth at all. Around the red dwarf, there may be satellites of gas giants that may also be considered candidates for life. They are also called super-Earths, massive planets. According to preliminary estimates of potentially habitable planets are about 60 billion. They are located around red dwarfs. It is worth noting that all 60 billion are located in the Milky Way. Red dwarfs may indeed become important objects for the survival of mankind in the future. But it is worth realizing that everything must die sooner or later, and red dwarfs are no exception. What happens to the red dwarf when it goes out? When the last red dwarf of our universe goes out in a few trillion years, it will no longer be a spectacular event. Because after the star runs out of hydrogen, it will turn into a blue dwarf and gradually burn out completely. After running out of fuel, the star will turn into a white dwarf, about the size of Earth, made of degenerate gases that are densely packed. Helium-4 is mostly found. Because the dwarf will lose its natural energy source, it will develop extreme cold. The cold will kill the dwarf for several trillion years before the last final form arrives, a cold black dwarf. White and black dwarfs are very fascinating in their own way and deserve to be examined in a separate video. In any case, until all the stars in the universe disappear, it will be a very long time. And it raises the mood, as mankind still has time to thoroughly explore the vastness of space and find the most successful solution to prolonged life. We are very pleased that you are so open and always learning new things. The Hubble channel would love to help you do just that. All you need to do is to put a huge like under this video, click on the subscribe button, and wait for the next episode.